Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 108. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for tuning in for a special edition of the podcast this Saturday morning as we hit Day 3 of the NFL Draft. And Dave, yesterday was less eventful for the Steelers in terms of standing pat, not making any trades, but certainly making two very interesting selections that we got to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, and neither one of them are golden domers like I thought would be.
It was a good
case.
guess of any. It was a good
I thought with a couple of the guys there, and with Kevin Colbert, going to that pro day and all, I thought, we're probably going to get one. I said I wouldn't even be surprised if we got two of them, but that obviously wasn't the case. A huge run on cornerbacks there for a while. When it got close to the Steelers pick, you kind of wondered, all right, and obviously I'm talking their 66th overall, the second pick in the third round there. I kind of thought it was going to be a corner or a guy like Miles Boykin. In that spot. I thought that was where we were headed because we had, I think, 3 or 4 corners left on the board where Colbert had been at the pro days of every one of them. And if not Chase Winovich, if not Miles Boykin, I thought it would be one of those, I think, 4 or 5 corners or however many it was that was left at the time there. It wasn't, but it ended up being a guy, a player that we were sort of familiar with. I think both you and I probably had him ranked a little bit further down the board, but that, of course, is wide receiver Diontae Johnson out of Toledo.
Yeah, and I'm going to pat myself on the back here briefly I wrapped up Friday's show by saying I thought day 2 they were going to take a corner and a receiver. They went, receiver before corner, and the name surprised me a little bit, but the position and the need certainly did not. Now, I think most people, myself included, just my initial reaction was that it felt higher than what we expected. I thought Diontae Johnson was going to be a solid day 3 pick. Maybe his ceiling was 5th round. But to hear everything after, because we know that the way the national media will rank these guys and the way that the league will rank these guys, it sounded like Johnson was definitely going to be a late day 2, early day 3 kind of guy. And, Daryl Drake, I love Daryl Drake. I miss Richard Mann dearly, but I think they have the perfect replacement for him and a guy cut from a very similar cloth. And he told it straight up. He said that had the Steelers not taken Diontae Johnson at 66, Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay was going to take him 4 picks later at number 70. So I believe him when he says that, and that means that Johnson was a late, day 2 kind of kid.
Yeah, and remember that this Antonio Brown, who you don't want to really sit here and say he's a comp between Diontae Johnson, but from a aspect of height, weight, speed and pure measurables and those kind of things, of course, both of them coming out of the MAC conference and all like that as well, too. You can see why they're, a little bit of at least measurable comps there, and you could probably see why a guy like Bruce Arians was probably attracted to him, because obviously Bruce Arians was with the Steelers when the Steelers drafted Antonio Brown. When you talk about Daryl Drake, you get got an old school coach there, and boy, they're not afraid to talk. Well, that's probably one of the longer coach press conferences following a selection I think we've heard in a while. And if it was up to me, you just let those guys go. But obviously Bert has a job to do. Probably had to get Drake back in the room there just in case something was to happen. And
they were about to pick again.
Yeah,
shuffling one man after the other.
Look, plain and simple, Diontae Johnson's probably not a guy a lot of people are aware of. They're going to look at his measurables, and they're going to instantly turn their nose up at him. 5'10" and a half, 183 pounds, 30 3/4 inch arms, 9-inch hands, which a little bit small on the hands, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
those are some smaller hands there. You look at his 40-yard dash time at the combine, 4.53. You go forward and you look at some of his other measurables. Not, this gets away from kind of a sparky dude, right? Which we've seen the Steelers kind of go for in the past there. But when you flip on the tape, is when you can kind of see why the Steelers were attracted to him.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, they've kind of gotten away from the sparky guy in the last couple of years. James Washington wasn't a super sparky guy, ran the 4.5. Juju Smith-Schuster wasn't a sparky guy. He ran, I think, 4.54. So they have done different molds and different types, and certainly on tape, you see a guy with quickness and burst and the ability to separate. This was a team that was looking for an X-type receiver primarily to help replace Antonio Brown. And I think that Johnson is capable of playing there. He did play there at Toledo, but he also did move around. And one thing I noted was that the versatility, I think, is really key because I think one of the biggest reasons why James Washington struggled last year, and Dave, you were all over this from the get-go, was that he played one spot at Oklahoma State. He didn't move around. And in the NFL, guys naturally have to move around to create different matchups, different looks, and just depending on the particular game plan. So I think Johnson's ability to play the slot and play the X is going to really help his transition to the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely right, Alex. He and Johnson at Toledo played both sides. He played all over. I mean, he lined up everywhere, all over the place in that offense there for them. Let's get to kind of his strengths here first, and I think his strengths, at least to me, is able, and Daryl Drake was all over this, and this matches, I think a lot of this matches what Daniel has in his scouting report from, when did he write that, early March?
A while ago.
I think so. Props to, because I think even on Twitter, Daniel put up there, look, kind of a measurable comp to Antonio Brown there. Now, look, in no way, shape, or form are we saying that's a comp here. We're just trying to give you a look at what he is physicality-wise and measurable-wise as far as that goes. But I think the biggest thing that jumps out is his ability to win off the line of scrimmage against press coverage, and he does so with varying degrees of speed, of tempo and speed. In other words, he's changed it up like a pitcher will change up, speeds on different pitches. He does that as well too, and it really catches the cornerbacks off guard, who, especially those that come up and, as Daryl Drake says, try to fingerprint you. I thought that was cute there. But one thing that does stick out is his suddenness and his quickness off the line of scrimmage against press coverage. Now, when he allows those DBs to get those hands on him, they can knock him off. Okay. Obviously a small school kid, so there's going to be some questions there. But in the few times that he played some bigger schools against my buddy Michael Jackson, it's
too early for a hee-hee, my friend.
in the Miami game, I thought he really ran circles around Michael Jackson in that game. And if you go turn on that game, a couple of those deep shots down the field, down the sideline there, you'll see a little bit of AB in Johnson in that last minute, get that arm out there and gain that kind of sudden separation there too. I think you'll see two instances of that in that Miami game there. A guy that, while Diontae Johnson has good body control, with the football in the air, I think he tracks the football extremely well. On top of that, I think he tracks it as good as AB in the air. I think he has good body control, but he's not a guy that you're going to see a lot make hard catches outside his frame. He's not a bad ball catcher, if that makes if that makes some sense there. Now, he does do it. I mean, there's a touchdown, I forget what game it is, where he does pluck one out of the air, kind of a outside the frame throw, but you're not going to see a lot of those. You're not going to see a lot of contested catches. At least I haven't come across a lot of those yet here. But you are going to see a kid that does get separation wherever he lines up. As long as he's not knocked off his route, you'll see a kid that comes back to the football several times, which is good. And I tell you one thing, I don't know if this stuck out to you or not, Alex, especially when he's playing some X. You know, teams that will oftentimes run that wide receiver, I don't know, what do you call it, smoke screen or
yeah, smoke screen, tunnel screen.
Bubble screen, whatever. He does a great job of selling a release first. And that will get the cornerback going backwards, and then he takes the step or two back behind the line of scrimmage there. And there's if he gets the football in that situation, there's some instant separation there, and behind the line of scrimmage. In other words, he's got a good 5 yards with the DB going the other direction there. And I think what's good is he's got some suddenness after the catch. He can stop on a dime and give you 9 cents change. He is a little bit of elusive out in open space there, and overall he's good with the football in his hands, and that's evident as him as a punt and kick returner. And those are the things I think that stuck out to me the most about him. At the top of the route, sometimes though, you'll see him, man, he sure does slip a lot, and I think a lot of times at the top of the routes, what he does is he'll drag his feet to kind of get into his hip sink there. But if you can straighten that out, he still gets good separation. You'll see a lot of times him just leap. If he gets a free release off the line against some of these corners, he'll make them look silly.
I have an article this morning on Steelers Depot that highlights 3 traits I think he shows consistently to be able to win as an X receiver. And you can read the whole article. I encourage you to check it out. But it's his route running separation, his ability to create space off the line at the top of the route. That's critical for an X receiver. His body control. I agree he's not making too many catches outside of his frame, but he's able to adjust to the ball and still catch it within his frame. And then, of course, the big playability. I mean, this is a guy that found home run after home run at Toledo without, necessarily great speed, either play speed or time speed. I think his play speed's better than the 4.53 that he ran, but I don't think he's this, 4.3 flat kind of guy. So
he's not an underwear Olympics medalist.
And he says he didn't even really train for the 40.
Right.
Which wouldn't be my advice to a prospect.
Right, I'm not sure I'd come out and tell people that, but
yeah, well, I guess it's supposed to make you feel a little better. That says, this guy ran 4.53 without really trying. But I certainly think the traits are there. Now, here's my concern, and I know that when we talk about comparing him to Antonio Brown, we have the caveat that we're not really calling him Antonio Brown. But one of the key things that made AB such an effective and elite receiver outside of his route running in his hands was his strength. I mean, this was just a strong dude that it was hard for corners to tackle Antonio Brown one-on-one. And I don't see that same strength with Diontae Johnson. I think he's a guy that goes down pretty easily once someone gets a hand on him. So there's a little bit of elusiveness to him. He's certainly a guy that can create some space, but whenever guys get a hand on him, he does tend to go down easily. So if you want to become that kind of AB, you got to get a whole lot stronger. And AB got stronger throughout his career, too. The way he came in out of college, out of Central Michigan, and the way he looks now is pretty different. But I think I saw Lance Zierlein give a Manny Sanders comp. I see maybe a little bit of Lance Moore with him, maybe a better version of Lance Moore. But Lance Moore had a long and productive career, especially when you consider what he did at New Orleans. So
really raw Golden Tate. How about that?
Yeah, but he's not physical like Golden Tate. Golden Tate is a dude that will break tackles and put you on your butt in the run game. So,
first thing I thought of was Golden Tate there, but maybe not as physical. Look, he's going to have he's not a bad route runner now, and obviously
he's a good route runner, I think.
Yeah. He's going to have to learn how to lean in, how to use that, get stronger to use that physicality to lean into some defenders and get that kind of separation there. Because look, AB, while AB wasn't a huge contested ball catcher, he definitely was able to do that a lot more than than Johnson is here as well, coming out of MAC and all. And then there's a whole level competition thing. One thing, I put that chart up on the Twitter machine several weeks ago about the explosive play stats for wide receivers, 25 yards and 15 yards based on what they have coming out of college for their career. Diontae Johnson's right slap dab in the middle of all of them there. He had 135 total receptions at Toledo. Once again, the Steelers stayed above that 100 reception total. So I don't know if we consider that a win with them liking guys with more than just 1 year producers, you know what I'm saying? And here's another thing let me put out there too. I haven't done this yet, and I want to make sure people know where I'm at in the evaluation here. I have only done his 2018 tape. I don't know if you've done any of his 2017 tape. I am only on his 2018 tape.
I've done a good bit of 17, so we can work together.
We'll talk about that in a minute here. But when you look at 18.5% of his catches were 25-yard gainers, and then 40%, over 40%, which obviously isn't a bad number at all, of his receptions ended up in gains of 15 yards or more. Now, keep in mind, a lot of those games against them, teams in the MAC and all like that. But he can produce the big play for you. Couple of 80-yard receptions, I think, on his tape from last year. Obviously, kick, at least one kickoff return, I think, for like 98 or something like that in there as well, too. Going to need some developmental time. Going to have to learn to do things better, especially at the top of his routes. But you can definitely see why they picked him. Tell me things that you see in 2017 that you don't see in 2018.
I don't know if there's anything I don't see. I think he's generally the same dude. The production was down a little bit from 17 to 18. What I just see overall is a guy that can create big plays. And maybe with the production, he didn't have as many big plays in 18 to 17. Put on that Ball State tape. This is a dude that it wasn't Toledo versus Ball State. It was Ball State versus Diontae Johnson. 88-yard touchdown receiving. 67-yard touchdown receiving. 87-yard punt return for a touchdown. And that all came, I think, within the last minute of the first half, and then I think in the third quarter. So this is a guy that just is capable of changing a game and being a dynamic player in that way without having maybe elite athletic tools. So that's what's attractive about him. And this is a guy that played quarterback in high school, too. And he tried to throw a pass against Eastern Michigan, I think, last year. He didn't throw it. The play was a bust. He ended up running for a 12-yard gain. So maybe they could even do a tiny bit of gadget stuff. I've seen this guy work out of the backfield in these angle routes and get motion out to help ID coverage. So a guy that you have a lot of options with. And it's always good to have options and versatility with your receivers.
Yeah, and look, I've seen people already say, well, he's probably going to play in the slot and all like that. You're not going to see a lot of him in the slot. I mean, that's just –
He'll play both.
Yeah, I mean, I think he will play it, but I think he's going to be primarily an X here, and he's not going to do a lot of Z. He's not a guy that's going to just blow past people down the sideline. But I tell you, one of the things that's not going to help him getting time in the slot is that while he is a willing blocker, he's just not very damn good at it.
Yeah, he's bad at it. But he's 5'10", 180,
I mean, he's got. I mean, you'll see sometimes too. He got a little bit of dog in him, and wanting to push back on some people and all like that. But he's just I like the willingness of him to block, but that's not him. At all. And like I said, the other thing I think that negatives with him is what he had. I think he had like 8 or 9 drops in the last 2 seasons for him. And what else was kind of negatives there? The catch radius isn't huge, at least what I've seen. The contested catches aren't something from what maybe you saw of a James Washington coming out of, or Juju coming out of USC. Let's see here. He can get knocked off routes, and he's got to do a better job at the top of the routes to not drag his feet, because sometimes you'll see him at the top of the routes lose footing.
My couple things I want to see him work on, and some of them are similar to yours. Again, the strength overall, I think you make a good point. He can get rerouted and bumped off too easily by zone defenders, especially when he takes an outside stem along the sideline. I think against true press corners, bigger guys, he can get locked up if he's not able to win initially. So we're going to have to work on that. You're playing that X receiver spot. Man, that's what you're facing. You're facing man press from that backside corner if you're 3-by-1. That's just how the NFL functions. So I want to see him work there. I want to see him just consistently work harder on his routes. I think sometimes you don't always see that snap. It's a little inconsistent. I want to see him consistently burst at the top of his route. And what was the other thing I wanted to see him work on? I just slipped my mind. But
he can win in small spaces too, especially down on the goal line. He should be a fairly decent red zone receiver despite his size. Because especially if you're doing anything with a timing play, either a quick slant, look, he showed he can run that slot fade, to a back shoulder at that. He showed that he can do that in very short spaces. He can run those quick angle routes or those type of things. So I think this is a guy that should give you a pretty decent option in the red zone.
Yeah, hey, best receiver's an open one, so that's something that he can do. He can get open. Last thing I wanted to note, I did remember what I wanted to be a little critical of was just the overall effort and scramble drills. I want to see him work back to the football, especially when he's backside, get back in phase. He'll learn pretty quickly, though, playing with Ben, that you're going to have to really run through the play and play to the whistle on a down-and-down basis.
Yeah, and that's about it on him. And we look to hopefully get our hands on more of his stuff here, and I'll try to do as complete of a contextualization as I possibly can on him and try to give you a better idea on what he does after the catch.
Last question on him, because we do want to mention, I know we touched on it, but special teams value. He's got 2 career kick return touchdowns, 2 career punt return touchdowns. Eli Rogers, Ryan Switzer, are they worried right now, or do you think they're going to be okay?
Somebody's got to be worried, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's more Eli because look, Switzer gives you Switcher's that more of the jitterbuggy type than Eli Rogers. I think now there you could create a scenario, I guess, where you carry once again 6 receivers, but man, somebody going to be look Diontae Johnson outside of kick returns and maybe some punt returns are not going to give you any special teams value. I don't think you want him running down there covering kicks or anything like that.
But he can do both. He's done both at a high level, kick and punt returns, and that's not easy to find.
Right, and that's going to maybe get him a helmet. So if he's done a lot more kick returns than punt returns, right?
I think he's done both about the same. I can look up his stats. He's got 2 touchdowns for both, so he's doing both at a high level. Regardless of what the number of attempts are. I'll look it up. But yeah, this is a team that was near the bottom in kick return average the last 2 years, and that's got to change. It's not acceptable. Yeah, he's got what's he got? 17. Yeah, he did. You're right a little bit. 78 career kick returns, 17 punt returns. He really didn't do punt returns until 2018. He did kick returns throughout his whole Toledo career. But he's done both and done it at a pretty high level.
I might be old, but damn it, I still can remember some certain things.
But he's got 2 punt return touchdowns on
sure. That's not bad at all, right? Oh yeah,
really
give me that ratio. Yeah, give me that. You want to give me that ratio every day of the week.
So Lito's saying we should have put this guy back there sooner because he's producing.
Right. What else was there on him? Seems to be a good kid, and boy, Daryl Drake sure talked about. Kind of a little bit, sound a little bit of hyperbole in there about, boy, really enjoyed talking to this kid. Might be the most. What was his exact quote? Been in 40 years or
40 years? One of the best interviews he's ever conducted.
That's strong right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I don't know how much hyperbole's in there.
Right. It was high praise for sure. And again, we'll talk about this with Justin Layne. We'll transition here basically right now. But Steelers don't hide interest. They had Daryl Drake there. They had Danny Smith at Toledo Pro Day, and they bring in Johnson for a pre-draft visit. So when they find their guy, they get their guy.
I think he's top 50. I think he's probably right at about number 15. He's definitely a top 20 wide receiver in my opinion in this year's draft class. Maybe 15's a little bit too high. Maybe about 18 or so. So yeah, maybe perhaps a little reach when it comes to him. But once again, if you like the guy, you better go get him. And it sounds like if they didn't get him, that Bruce Arians was going to get him. So, but make no mistake, it was a little bit of a surprise. He is how old is he? 22.
He'll be 23 and we'll be 23 like in the next couple months.
Yeah,
2 months
so a little bit, but he's a redshirt junior, isn't he?
Yeah, he had a foot injury in 2016 that caused him the red shirt. But he's a little bit older. He's not a super young junior. He's like a senior that didn't red shirt.
Well, look, you got Donte Moncrief now. You got Juju, obviously. You got James Washington. You have Ryan Switzer. You have Eli Rogers.
You say James Washington?
Yeah, and then now you throw in Johnson on top of that. That makes 6, right?
This will be fun for the summer. You got Donte Moncrief, Diontae Johnson, and Deontay Spencer. So this will be. I'm gonna get this screwed up like 10 times, I'm sure.
You don't have a learning disorder.
Well, I don't know. It's gonna happen on autocorrect on a tweet, probably in training camp.
All right.
Waiting for it. All right, let's move on to the other man that they selected. Maybe a little bit of debate we'll have here. I know we're going to tell our sponsors we're running long again today, Dave. Justin Layne, the 83rd pick, the corner from Michigan State. Certainly, if Diontae Johnson was a surprise, Justin Layne is the opposite, knowing that they were likely to take a corner and all the interest they've shown in Justin Layne. Again, brought in for a pre-draft visit. Kevin Colbert, Terrell Austin, sent to his pro day. Long, lean corner, former receiver. Turn to play DB. You're probably higher on him than I am, but what do you think of the pick?
Yeah, I am a little bit higher on him just from a man press aspect. I think he is better where he in instances where he can use that 6'1" 3/4 inch 192 body of his. When he's in situations where he can use that, I think it plays to his advantage. I think at the NFL level, if he continues to maximize those strengths of that physicality, what is his hand? What do you have on 33-inch arms, right?
He's got really good length. I can look up exactly what he is, but it's good length.
A good wingspan on him. He sticks that. In other words, he don't have no problem reaching out and fingerprinting you.
Yeah, 33-inch arms.
So I think when he's allowed to use that physicality more is what makes him is his strengths, and he's going to have to maximize on that because I don't think. Look, I mean, when you see him play off. His man's better than his off to me, because when you ask him to definitely change the direction underneath, he kind of clunky in my opinion there, and then flipping those hips in those situations, off the ball, off of a free release, he can lose real quick. Is my aspect. Now, obviously, when he doesn't bump receivers off their routes on man and has to turn and run, you can see him lose too. Now, you look at his time speed at, was it 4.5 with him? His long speed, I don't think is as bad. If you turn on that Ohio State tape and you watch him get beat by Terry McLaurin on the right side one time, He's chugging right along step for step with McLaren, although
I don't know about that.
Although he's losing it. No, he's right. I mean, he's beat, but he's not getting run away from.
Well, that's not making me feel better because that's
I'm trying to just isolate it just on his speed, not on the result. Don't look at this as a result.
But he's not gaining ground. I know the play you're talking, but I posted the play. He's beat, and he's not gaining ground either. He didn't get back in phase. He's got 2 steps behind McLaurin.
Right, but he's running with him for that series of 20 yards, whatever it was. In other words, I think you can see where his football speed can match a few other players.
Yeah, I don't know. That's I disagree. That's not the play I'm pointing
to. Isolate that.
I don't think the speed is great. I think he's about a 4.5
I'm not saying it's great. I'm saying that he can run once he gets top in.
Yeah, I don't know. We've talked about Layne before, and I don't want to feel super critical of the pick because it's third round. It's 83. I feel a lot better than 83 than say 52 had they had a 52nd selection and took him there.
It's better to get him there than it was 66. Obviously,
yeah.
66 was probably going to be too high for him.
Well, 66, 83. Tomato. I just worry about the average speed. I call him an average long speed guy with some stiffness. And I think that's a bad combination if you're going to play corner in the NFL.
You seem to be higher on Isaiah Johnson.
Because he's a 4-4 guy. He's an athlete. He's a better athlete.
Out of him, I just find him more clunky. I found Johnson to be more clunky than Layne.
I think Johnson was a little more raw than Justin Layne, but I think
is Isaiah Johnson still on the board? I
believe so. Yes.
Okay. Look, I mean, this guy's long, and like I said, I think he's better. Would you agree about the physicality aspect? And he's that's his game, and that's what he needs to maximize at the NFL level. Because look, you're not going to get him to turn and flip his hips any better. I mean,
you could a little bit, but you're not going to work on the speed. You can work on some of the technique stuff that I think maybe causes some of the tightness. I mean, he's a big guy that's going to pop up. No, I agree. I mean, I think he works well in contested situations whenever he is in phase, red zone phase, when he's there with the football. In smaller field situations, he's going to play better. When you have some open field situations and you're running deep, you're covering 40 yards downfield, there might be an issue there. But when he's there and able to make the play, the dude makes the play more often than not.
You obviously are going to want to try to get him matched up more on the more bigger physical wide receivers.
Yes, and offenses are going to try to do the opposite.
Right, they're going to try to get
Diontae Johnson on Justin.
They're going to try to get AB on him.
yeah, they know the game.
So people are saying, well, can he play some in the slot? You don't want him in the slot, I don't think.
And Terrell Austin was asked that and was like, no, this is an outside corner. This is your left corner. This
is a guy that you want to give him some sideline to be able to use as a defender as well, too. But comes out really look, kind of interesting fact. Comes out of Cleveland, Ohio. Went to Chuck Knowles High School there.
Really,
Benedictine in Cleveland there. Going to be interesting to watch progress here. He's definitely not a guy that he's going to have. Here's what I think I put on Twitter this morning. He's going to have to become more of a technician. As a cornerback, and I keep going back to this, he's going to have to maximize his strengths with his physicality and in man situation, and of course, play having his play as much as he can, not having to turn and run. So in other words, keep the play in front of you, or if you're going to be up on them, you better get an arm and knock these receivers off their course, off the line of scrimmage.
I like his ball skills. I like his ability to track the football. I like his ability to time his jumps, make plays in the football. He's got a ton of breakups, not a lot of picks, but a ton of breakups. I think he's a willing tackler. I think he'll run support with some hit power and a frame to grow into. I think he's got some technique as a tackler. I think he aims too low. He doesn't always break down. But
he will come up though, and not only will he come up, he will advance to go to the ball carrier. So in other words, he is not afraid to, my famous thing is stick his face in the fan. He will advance on players underneath to willingly go after tackling them. So I like that part of him. And he damn sure better at 6'1", 192 pounds. You better go be willing to throw that body around like that. So yeah, I do like his run support. He seems to he also seems to have a good understanding of route combinations and those kind of things. So I think his football IQ is okay from what I can tell so far.
Mm-hmm. Well, playing receiver, I think it helps you as a corner know what receivers like to do and tend to do. So yeah, I mean, I just hope he doesn't have to play a lot year one. And obviously the way the depth chart is set, that may be the case if they want to keep Steven Nelson outside, and as long as they have enough trust in Mike Hilton or Cam Sutton, I suppose, to play in the slot. But I just see a developmental guy. And I just go back to the speed and tightness, and that's the thing that worries me. But there are things to like about Justin Layne. I mean, this guy's got really good ball skills, and this team wanted to find guys and DBs that could make plays on the football, and Justin Layne certainly can.
He's got a little, he's got a little bit of explosion to him, you know. I think, he had a nice broad jump, I think, at the combine, and his short shuttle wasn't awful from what I remember. Neither was his 3-cone. But once again, it's just that if they got to get him to stay sunk more, I think with those hips, and when you have a longer guy like that, it is not uncommon to have him pop up a lot quicker there,
Yep.
and then that they doesn't allow them to get themselves into phase and start running quicker.
I will put a little feather in our cap over here, Dave. 2 of the first 3 selections, Devin Bush and Justin Layne, showed up in our what they look for study. They were both just 1 box away. Devin Bush, because of his height, he missed by 1 inch, and Justin Layne missed by his 3-cone time. But again, I think history shows that these are the type of players the Steelers look for. Now, Diontae Johnson was a little bit of an outlier, but Layne and Bush kind of really fit the mold.
How far was Johnson off from? What did he miss in?
He missed in 3 categories, not by a lot. He missed by the vert by 1.5 inches, and he missed by in the short shuttle in the 3-cone by less than 1/10 of a second. And if he's not training for this stuff, then maybe he would have done it had he trained, like a lot of players do. So he missed in 3 categories though.
All right. Well, we obviously will have a lot. We try to break down the whole entire enchilada here. Hours after a pick is. People are going to ask us, "What do you think about the draft?" and all like that. Give us time to completely go through a lot of the tape here, because guys like Johnson, I'd watched about maybe two cut-ups of him before the draft. I mean, I had a pretty decent idea of who he was, and obviously Daniel did a good job with his profile and all, but I mean, you throw on 6 or 7 games, and then you really start getting an idea of who these guys are. So I definitely want to go back and try to find some of his 2017 stuff. Layne is probably pretty much who both of us thought he was, or what our perceived thoughts on him were. Prior to this thing. It's not a surprise they took him when they did. That's it's probably the ideal place to take him, right? The spot.
Yeah. I thought the value was good. I thought he was going to be maybe a mid round 2 corner coming into this thing. So you get him mid round 3. I'm happy with the value of it.
All right, tell the people what we're looking for today. With what do we got? 6 picks planned. They're not gonna make 6 picks, are they?
They could, but they could do a trade package one of those 6-rounders. Take 2 of those 6-rounders, move up to the 5th or something. I don't know if you need 3 of those 6-round picks, but yeah,
I don't know if they need all them picks or not, but
yeah, they got They got 6 picks today, 3 in the 6th, 4th, 5th, and the 7th. I got a post on Steelers Depot that lays out the options for day 3. I mean, it's the draft board's going to expand so much on day 3.
It fans out so quick now.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some names you never heard of before. But, just basically look at the pre-draft visitor list. I look at Hugo Amadi from Oregon, Mike Weber from Ohio State, Foster Moreau, our guy at tight end. How about your boy, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, falling out of day 2?
I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand that. And is Hooker still out there?
Yeah, there's some really good dime players out there in this team. That dime situation still feels open. Yeah, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Amani Hooker, Sheldrick Redwine from Miami. You got some of the Boston College kids. Lucas Dennis is there, though I'm not crazy about his game. So look at them. Running back, Benny Snell, my guy, Alex Barnes, your guy. What about Raquel Anderson from Temple, big power back. David Sills the 5th is there. Matt Gay, they can take a kicker today. That'll be fun to see. And then one little sleeper, Matthew Betts from Laval, from Canada. Steelers at his pro day, one of 5 teams to be at his pro day. I think that means some interest is there. Could be a 6th, 7th round flyer.
Would you consider double dipping at wide receiver here and maybe going after Sills in the 5th round?
Yeah, I'll double dip. I think people ask me this all the time. Should they double dip? And I don't know if it's always an intentional thing that you do. I think it's often a product of just the value being there. You're saying this guy's great. It's that much higher. We're taking this guy because we have to maximize talent on day 3. That's how you win the draft. Not by drafting for need, not drafting a position, drafting the best talent available, somebody that slipped through the cracks. And Sills is obviously a much different body type and play style than Diontae Johnson. So you want to take David Sills in the 6th round? Awesome. Cool with me.
What about an edge here? We're going to need an edge. DeAndre Walker wasn't Keith Butler at that Georgia Pro Day. I mean, not great tape. I know they're at the Alabama. Christian Miller, I think, might.
That's where I was going to go. Yep, Christian Miller.
Might
Brailford?
still be on the
Brailford's still
Brailford, and what about Hollins?
Yeah, Justin Hollins. Charles Ameni, is he still there? Charles Ameni?
I think Ameni is still on the board as well too. So, what about the other edge at Clemson, Austin Bryant? He showed a lot more bend than what's my boy's name? Cleveland Farrell.
Cleveland Farrell. Yeah. Bryant's for 271. Did he move around too? I didn't watch Bryant. Did he drop him like Farrell?
Yeah, he did. He played on his feet quite a bit, actually. And he's a little bit older, obviously, I think there, but maybe that's a name to look at. You get past that though, man. I mean, Porter Gustin, I guess, would be a late round.
He might have failed the combine drug test, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
So that could be a reason. You got Ulysses Gilbert III. Now he's an off-ball guy, but Jamal Davis-Macklin could be a potential edge guy, though I like him more off-ball. But any offensive lineman, Alex Bars, our guy, Alex Bars.
Man, I would have no problem with Bars, really at any point moving forward right now. I mean, I know there's a whole injury thing right there, but I mean, somebody's gonna, I think, get a pretty damn good offensive lineman with him. And look, I mean, who knows what way they're gonna go with offensive lineman here. We would expect it to be an interior guy that can play maybe both guard and center, you would think here, but looking for them to get an edge. Boy, Ugo just seeing. I think you may, both of us at some point on Twitter may have put this out there. Ugo just seems like he's destined to be on. And what's this? Look, Kevin Colbert said taking the football away, and Justin Layne had how many interceptions?
Three picks, I think.
Yeah, you better get somebody that has a history of taking the football away, and at least Ugo. People are Twitter's gonna melt down if they draft that tiny guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But look,
it's gonna be a small draft class. Bush and Johnson and Ugo if they take them.
Yeah, but Ugo fits. I mean, obviously the other dime guys that you mentioned, a tight end somewhere in here. You would think maybe a running back at some point in here. Maybe you double dip at a wide receiver, and I don't know if edge, obviously you're going to need one of those, at least one there as well too. So yeah, maybe they will use all 6 picks here, but going to be a interesting day 3, and then boy, we'll get right after it, immediately after the draft is over, finding the names of this undrafted free agent class on top of it.
That's the most chaotic part of the entire draft because I have like 10 tabs open just refreshing on Twitter or like trying to search keywords like Steelers sign, Steelers free agent, and just the game is on. The hunt is on.
Absolutely. All right, got anything else to add? We'll definitely get more into the tape of all these guys here, but that should be a large list of names for people to look for here in day 3.
Yep, that's all from me, Dave.
All right, follow all along all the action. The guys are doing fantastic work on SteelersDepot.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit donate upper right navigational bar. And as usual, we keep getting people to sign up for this, which is good. If you want an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com for 1 year, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. And for $25, you can have an ad-free version of the site for 1 calendar year. And Alex and I will be back at you probably again on Sunday morning. What is today? Saturday? Yeah.
So we'll be back
Saturday. On Sunday morning. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.